Hey guys, so I am here to humbly admit a rookie mistake about my fueling system. Fortunately, it had nothing to do with my pulse signal, like some people have suggested. It actually had to do with my fuel line. I think what was happening is, that's a new filter, but on my old filter, there were little air bubbles coming through into the fuel line from somewhere. I don't know if it was from the filter area or from another thing I did is I installed a hard line that goes all the way to the bottom of the tank. Before I just had a piece of this blue tubing, fuel line tubing, and I'm sure that worked, but I don't think it always could reach the bottom of the tank, and more so if it flopped around, that could be the cause of my air bubbles. So I replaced all my fuel lines with brand new ones that are smaller actually. Those are 3/16s. My old ones were 1/8. I also added clamps anywhere where it's important, and this seems to have solved my hesitation, because when I was testing it, I was watching it and I would see a bubble go down the line and then get into the carb, and immediately that's when it would bug down the next time I pulled the throttle. So I suspect this was my issue. Also, I finally got a reserve situated properly. I bought a huge reserve by accident. Well, not by accident. I thought it was a good idea. Alright, and we're up. It was a beautiful day, and I did some extensive testing on the motor, and I knew it was running good, so I decided to just pretty much start climbing and see how it goes, and check out some awesome sights. So I finally felt pretty comfortable to venture out from the airport a little bit. I still was at all times close enough where I could just glide down in case the engine went out. But I did venture out a little bit and checked out some cool little places to see and awesome mountains, and we have a wind farm over here straight ahead in this shot, and it was cool watching the windmills rotate around and the Stewart Mountain Range, so it was a beautiful day. I was very excited. Speaking of the Stewart Mountain Range, that's it, ahead in the shot. It was very beautiful, but unfortunately it's kind of hidden by the clouds, but I could see it far in the distance. You can't really tell in the video. But hopefully one day my paramotor is reliable enough where I can venture out that way and check out the hills and the scenery over there and hopefully make it back. So we've gained a whole bunch of altitude, and that's pretty sweet, man, because I could see the windmills over there directly ahead, and I could see actually my launch site for free flying and my community and the landing zone, and I was well above all those things, so I estimate I was probably about 2,000 feet up, maybe a little bit less, but somewhere close to that, so that's pretty sweet. It's definitely the highest I've flown so far. And at this point I've been flying for probably about 45 minutes, so it was getting really cold and pretty high up, and even though I was wearing thick gloves, my hands were getting cold again, so I decided to just throttle down and idle and do some turns as I lost altitude and eventually came in for a landing. You know, one of the things I noticed is that even when I idle, I produce quite a bit of thrust, and so it took me like a whole 10 minutes just to lose this altitude. And so I think what I'm going to do eventually is put a clutch on my paramotor and machine a new pulley, a new lower pulley, so I can actually idle the prop when I'm flying, so I can make tighter turns and stuff like that. I noticed when I shut the engine off, when I come in for a landing, the paramotor is much more sensitive to turns. So if you're still watching, there's going to be a little post-flight debriefing. But I wanted to say, stay tuned for my next video. I discovered this amazing flying site that's over on the Columbia River, and there's some amazing ridges for soaring. And so I went free flying there a couple of days ago and was learning, soaring on those little ridges. And I actually got lifted much higher than expected, and the winds picked up and I started flying backwards. So that's going to be interesting. I had to hike back to my car and stuff. So anyway, stay tuned for that. Yeah, I just wanted to do a post-flight debriefing before I left. That was cool. One of the few times in a forward position that I've been able to get off first try. So that was a long flight. I got really cold. That's why I didn't record anything right after. So let's see. I got this much fuel. I don't know how long that was. I put in maybe about this much. That's maybe about half gallon, maybe 3/4 of a gallon. Probably not quite. Probably closer to half gallon. Yeah, so my fueling issues are sorted out. There's one slight, tiny hesitation when I first get on the gas, but it plows right through that and works just fine. Everything seems to be holding up. I didn't update you guys before, but here's one change that I had to make that helped a lot. I shortened my intake tube so the carb is very close to the port. But then what I did is I did my calculations again for having a tuned intake, and I increased the length of the velocity stack. So that's cool. And by the way, that is the Walworth WB32 carburetor working. Now on the flip side, I don't know if you can see that, but I have an oil leak. And I did patch up my little spot right here that I welded, but there was oil there earlier. But this looks bigger. This looks bigger than just that little leak that I had. So I'll have to figure it out. It could be that I installed a seal in the back wrong, or something cracked. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But it's running awesome. It's flying awesome. It was a little bumpy, but I definitely got more altitude than I have so far, and there's a beautiful sunset starting to form. That was awesome, man. Homemade paramotor.